Hello and welcome to the Smart Recovery Podcast, your audio headquarters for inspiring and insightful discussions on the topic of addiction recovery. What you'll hear with us will be self-empowering, science-based, and stigma-free. We believe you have the power within yourself to make changes that will move you toward a more satisfying life. And we hope these messages and interviews with leading addiction experts and advocates will help you believe that too. Remember that the purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. It is not a substitute for medical care from a doctor or other qualified medical professionals. Before making any changes in your treatment plan, please discuss your thoughts with your medical provider.
Welcome to the Smart Recovery Podcast. I'm Luke Frazier. Today we have an exciting podcast. We're welcoming a new employee of Smart Recovery. It's Michael Hooper. He is the Ohio State Outreach Director. In fact, he's the first of that role to be a part of SMART. And he's going to tell us about both his personal experience in recovery and also what he would like to accomplish as the Ohio State Outreach Director. So let's get started. Michael, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Luke. Happy to be here.
All right. So, you're gonna do a lot of great things. I'm sure people have confidence in your ability to execute the kind of things that SMART needs because, let's face it, since COVID-19, the opioid crisis has accelerated the number of overdoses and deaths in Ohio. Lots of evidence out there about more alcohol abuse when the pandemic started and as it continues. So there's a lot that needs done, and SMART's responding to that. But before we get into it, tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you become first involved with Smart Recovery as a participant?
Sure, absolutely. So to give you a little background on myself, I've been battling alcohol addiction for over 20 years. It became very prominent during my military service, especially after I was deployed to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba in 2004. And returned home to serve with Homeland Security as a deployment at home for a year. It was a daily struggle, and I had very little knowledge to resources on how to combat it. So I was doing nothing really to help my problem, and it affected every aspect of my life: professional, personal, family, friends. Nothing was safe, and as I left the military and got into private sectors. I went into the hospitality management, and it was years of bouncing from job to job, ruined opportunities. I can go on and on. I spiraled heavily out of control toward in my 30s.
Yeah, Michael, let me jump in for a second because you said something important: ruined opportunities. A lot of times people think of substance use disorder as all the bad things that happen. But in a certain way, there's also things we do not do because of substance use disorder.
Absolutely.
Opportunities we miss. So it's not just what we do, it's what we don't do, it's what we miss. And I appreciate you noting that.
And for those that might be listening that have suffered through addiction or are possibly suffering through addiction, they know that better than most, because the guilt and shame that we carry through our actions during our addictive or destructive behaviors, it doesn't just extend to what's happening in the present. It's from the past and what could have been our futures. I had a lot of opportunities to excel in many different aspects and many different careers that were ruined because of my alcohol addiction. So toward getting back to how I got involved with SMART, when I finally reached a level of hopelessness for myself, I reached out to the one resource that I had always found strength in, which was my military background and the pride I had in serving in the United States military. And I reached out to the Veteran Crisis Hotline, and from there I was connected to a outreach program called Community Hope, and they brought me into the West Haven VA, which I was first introduced to Smart Recovery. And my first interaction with that program, I knew right from the very first meeting, this was going to be a life changer. I was completely blown away by that program. It answered questions I had been asking for years about my addiction, about how to combat my addiction, and what I could do for myself to create a level of empowerment that I felt confident in executing in my daily life. And
that's important right there, Michael, because a lot of times people will, their journey to recovery will first expose them to 12-step programs, that they're told about 12-step and not so much about SMART. So what do you think, how did it come to be that West Haven VA was really promoting SMART? Do you have any idea how that began?
When I spoke to the facilitator, Lorraine, who was my first facilitator, it was still in a very experimental stage. The VA hadn't fully incorporated it into their program. It was still volunteer at that point. The only programs that were mandatory in their rehabilitation IOPs were 12-step. SMART was offered, but it was only on a voluntary basis for the veterans. But because of the popularity of the program with the participants, it then became incorporated into the curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
And after I had went there, years later, it was something that I reached out to when I got to the domiciliary in Bath, New York. And I spent a 4-month intensive inpatient program there, where SMART, again, was not part of the overall curriculum, but was a voluntary program that you could sign up for. And obviously, I immediately did that. And it was there that I got my facilitator training accomplished. I got my certificate to become a facilitator in SMART recovery. And I learned how effective it really was for the veteran population. And it's been that way ever since.
Why do you think it's effective for veterans? Is it because of the military connection?
I believe many veterans, like myself, we like a direct sense of purpose. And when we're introduced into programs that are designed to create, self-help and self-awareness, it's difficult for us to acknowledge assistance from others with our own internal struggles. We like to be able to, and obviously I'm speaking for myself, but I know many veterans that agree with my thought process. We like the ability to solve our own problems. A lot of that comes from our training from the military. We're trained to adapt and overcome when something doesn't go by the book. So when you're introduced to a program that tells you to take things on faith, or to take things by the word of someone else who might be a stranger, you might not have full trust in, it can be difficult. And this is in no way, degrading any 12-step program. It's just, as a matter of fact, SMART recovery works very symbiotically with 12-step, but that's a later discussion. It works well for veterans because it gives you the tools to self-manage your addiction and destructive behavior. And that's something that I was in dire need of. I was asking very direct questions before I found SMART, and I was not getting direct answers. When I came to SMART, I did get those answers. I said, well, how do you do this in this situation? Well, you have options. You can do this, and if that doesn't work, you can try this. And it was direct paths to tools that helped manage my addictive and destructive behavior by orchestrating my thoughts and my feelings and actions. And that's what really, really appealed to me about SMART recovery as a veteran.
Yeah, and exactly as the thread that you're talking through is this self-empowerment, the sense that I can steer the boat, if you will, although you weren't Navy, so we'll say you can direct the troops, the troop of one. This idea that you have practical tools, you have answers to your questions. You're not asked, as you said, sometimes in 12-step, it's, okay, just do this and don't worry about it, just follow my directions. And so that can be something that turns off a lot of people, veterans and others. But I think particularly, as you said, if you're looking at it from how your training went in the military, it's such a natural fit that you can have respond to this and have success with it. So that's part of your journey. And I'll say here that you're listening to the Smart Recovery Podcast. Michael Hooper is our guest. He's the Ohio State Outreach Director. He's been telling us about his personal experience getting to participate in SMART, and how he eventually ended up talking to the people at national office and ending up becoming part of the staff here. But just to kind of finish up that personal aspect of it. So you had the 4-month intensive treatment, you were introduced to SMART, then you went to the domiciliary in Bath, New York. What happened after that?
Okay. So after that, as I mentioned, I was extended a assistance from Community Hope, which is a veteran state-run nonprofit program that helped me get back on my feet financially and so on and so forth. So after I established myself with, getting a job, getting an apartment running, I knew the first thing I wanted to do was get a meeting going. I knew that right from the beginning. A lot of facilitators are nervous about getting started, which is understandable. I mean, if you've never run a meeting before, it can be very intimidating. Obviously, there's a lot of facilitators out there that are listening to this, hopefully, and others that, that host meetings with 12-step. It can be a little intimidating, being in charge, so to speak, of that many people who are looking for help. I knew right away I wanted to do that. I wanted to have the ability to pay this forward. And that's been my motivation from day one to where I'm sitting now as Director of Outreach Services for Ohio. And so I reached out to Alex Cadre. Well, actually, Alex Cadre, who's the regional coordinator for New Jersey, reached out to me after I graduated. And we worked very closely hand in hand. He helped me tremendously to get started. I found a location, and I was able to start a meeting within the first 90 days of getting home. And it started in September. It was very small. I had one participant for 3 whole weeks. But, the good news was the word grew, and it got to become very popular. I was in Hackensack, New Jersey. The meeting is still there, by the way, taken over by people that started as participants with me while I was a facilitator, who then went on to get the training as host and as facilitators, and now run that meeting themselves. So
yeah, that's a great progression. I mean, that's where the depth of a program like SMART comes in, is that people take over for others.
And that's the great thing about it. It's not, it's not just what you can do and just watch others, go through their own stories. They have the ability, once you become a participant, you have the ability to not only gain the self-empowerment for yourself, but you can give that back to someone else after you excel within the program. And it gives a sense of purpose, which I love about this program. There's so many avenues of purpose that you can accomplish with Smart Recovery. And that's what really I feel a lot of pride about with, because you can actually see tangible results moving forward. And it's not just in your recovery path. The program gives you tools that helps you balance your life in so many different aspects, and you see that on a daily basis. And that's what I felt a lot. I still feel a lot of pride to what's been accomplished so far, and I'm just very hopeful for the future of what we can do here in Ohio.
Right. Well, I myself, and I'm sure the national office staff and others who will encounter you, are really glad that Alex reached out and had you as a partner there. I mean, Alex is a great guy. He does great work himself. You talked about this taking the bull by the horns, if you will, to use a cliche. And we've been talking about alcohol abuse, the substance use disorder, but SMART also works for people engaged in other negative behaviors rather than substances. Why do you think it transfers so nicely over to those kind of things?
Well, if you look at the mission statement of Smart Recovery, it says addictive or destructive behavior. It doesn't focus on any one particular aspect of something that's negative in someone's life. The 4-point program that Smart works off of, the 4th point of the program is living a balanced lifestyle. And that incorporates many, many different avenues. And that, the issue itself that might cause a disruption in your life may not be the actual core of the problem. There might be something else in your past. There might be something else that you failed to really recognize or deal with that's causing the need for this addictive and destructive behavior. So that's what SMART really focuses on. It's getting that aspect of your life back in order. So the addictive aspect of it, of the negative relation to your life, is no longer necessary. So I think that's why it translates so well, whether you have an opioid addiction, whether you have an alcohol addiction, whether it's gambling, sex, or over or under eating. It incorporates balancing your life to the point that you no longer need those negative aspects as a substitute for happiness. And that's what, or what your goal might be, to find contentment in your life. And I think that's why SMART works so well across the board with many different addictive problems, is because it combats it as a core of what's wrong, where the imbalance lies. It goes after that rather than the basic.
Yeah, very well said, because a negative behavior and imbalance can come from just spending too much time with an activity so that your family and friends aren't part of your life anymore. You've become isolated. You've become, someone who only thinks about doing one thing and it ends up hurting you and hurting others because of that imbalance. That's exactly right.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been in 12-step programs that they've even mentioned that recovery can become an addictive behavior, you know what I mean, for some people. So, you know what I mean? And that's completely true. You know what I mean? Because if your lifestyle's not, like you said, if you don't balance your life with the things that are, you know, your values and what you're doing to keep yourself on the straight and narrow, then there's a disconnect.
And you've mentioned kind of the tools that have been used. I know that most people know this already, but talk some about the cognitive behavioral aspects of SMART. Why do those principles apply in substance use disorders?
Well, it's very simple. I mean, there are two ways that the tools have been effective, especially for me. I've mentioned this many times in my own groups, facilitating smart recovery. And the tools provide you with two main resources to combat addictive or destructive behavior. And one is your reflective tools, which is where you can take an aspect of your life and break them down and find out why this particular issue in your life has become such of a problem. Tools like what's called the ABC tool, which you take an activating event in your life which causes negative results because of your belief system towards that activating event. And then the C stand, that's your A, your B is your belief system, the C is the consequences generated because of that belief system. So then you go down the line and you dispute that aspect of thinking and you say, well, why? Why do I believe this about this activating event? And as you get more in depth, you come up with a more effective way of thinking that might be more beneficial than the way you've originally been handling that certain activating event. So that's what I like to call like a reflective tool. You have time to sit down, really analyze what you're doing and find out whether or not it's actually helpful or insightful for your life. The other are crisis management tools. And these I really, really find effective because they're the ones that deal with these addictive and destructive behaviors when they come out in your daily life as an urge or a craving or a sudden impulse. So when that happens, and people that have dealt with addiction before will know exactly what I'm talking about, it's very hard to think cognitively. It's very hard to think productively when you're dealing with an urge or a craze because that almost primal need for that addictive behavior starts to take over. And it's not easy to deal with, obviously. I mean, if it was, nobody would be dealing with addiction.
Right.
But these tools that are based off of CBT and REBT help you combat that feeling at that moment. So for instance, one of my favorite tools is the DEADS tool, which uses multiple options to get away from an urge or a craving. And so, the D stands for delay, E is for escape, A is for avoid, D, the other D is distract, and S is substitute. Now, rather than get into a long explanation of all of those, it gives you options. And that's another reason I like about this program. So if one thing is not available, let's say you want to avoid a situation, but you can't, maybe you can distract yourself while you're in the situation, or simply substitute the action for something else, you know what I mean? And it gives you different ways to combat it. So all you have to do, and what's handy with these acronyms, it gives you a quick way to reference it. It's not a lot of overthinking, and it can be used very fast. And that's very effective when dealing with sudden urges and cravings. So you have those reflective tools and crisis management tools that you can put into what we like to call your toolbox in smart recovery, which is your arsenal of your gear and your weaponry that can help you combat these different aspects of your addiction. Because addiction it's very, very, very clever, and it will find different ways to attack you when you get stronger. So just like everything else, you have to train, you have to be able to overcome these situations, and these tools help you do that in many different aspects.
Yeah. You're listening to the Smart Recovery Podcast. We're talking with Michael Hooper. He is the Ohio State Outreach Director for SMART. And we're talking about his journey into SMART, his journey as a trained facilitator, what has happened, what impact he's had for that. And now you're going toward another area of impact, Michael. You're the state outreach director, and what's the kind of things you're going to do? What are the kind of things? Well, first of all, why do you think you were chosen for this position? Are there aspects of your life?
Oh, wow. I mean, that's a that's a question. I like to think a lot of it has to do with the passion that I have about this program, and that I'm a walking success story to what can be accomplished. 4 years ago, just as short as 4 years ago when I started my journey with SMART, all I was hoping to do was be able to bring this program to as many people as possible, because I knew it was effective. And I didn't just know it was effective because it's something that I saw in my own life. I saw it with my brothers and sisters in the VA. I saw it with the people in my own facilitating group. I saw it, when speaking with people like Alex and Mark Ruth and Christy, and you see the passion that people have about this program and the effectiveness of how well it combats these issues and how it changes people's lives for the better. So I've always wanted to do more, and I've always wanted to be able to give back as much as I possibly could, and I think that was recognized by the national office, and I'm honored that was something that was used as one of their deciding points to bring me on, because it just helps me in my dream to be able to further excel this program to new and greater heights. And now with this position being awarded to me, I have that opportunity, and I have the resources of this program full potential behind me to be able to extend that to many different avenues that I never would have been able to do just as a volunteer. So I am completely humbled and honored by this, and I'm hoping that that my actions will lead to justify their expectations.
Yeah, well, we're honored too to have someone of your caliber and your experience to join the team. And are there aspects or characteristics of your background that you think maybe you can bring to this position that maybe are unique or different from other people?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, besides the veteran aspect of it, I mean, I'm multi-ethnic. I grew up in a minority community, and as many people already know, urban and low-income areas are in dire need for nonprofit resources. That folks that don't have the means of health insurance or large annual incomes to help combat their mental illness or addictive issues, they can't find, because they're just simply not there. And there are countless programs that are out there already that are doing tremendous work, but obviously there's always a need for more. So one of my hopes as coming on as an outreach director is to be able to broaden our involvement, within those communities. And I hope, being that I have a background in that, my family and friends, grew up in that atmosphere. I have family and friends that have suffered. Some have died from addiction. And, because those resources weren't there, I'm hoping that I can play a part in changing that. And that's something that I think I would be very beneficial to bringing to the Smart Recovery team, is my background and my affiliation with that community, where they might not have had that advantage prior to me coming on. So that's something that I'm looking forward to bringing to this organization and moving forward with.
Yeah, it's like, in a general sense, SMART is one of the multiple pathways to recovery, and also you're talking about a multiple perspective on recovery. You bring these things that others need, number one, and number two, they may not be able to get elsewhere. So that's a strong combination. And I also understand you've had some experience with the criminal justice system, and you might bring that to the table too.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I was convicted of 2 DUIs and was incarcerated for that crime for 4 months at the Carl Robertson Penitentiary in Connecticut. And the way that was handled, obviously, the system is designed extremely poorly to combat addictive behavior and drug-related crimes. I mean, the punishments very rarely benefit the individual when it comes to the fact of rehabilitation. And I'm not talking about repeat offenders. That's a whole different subject. I'm not opening that can of worms. What I'm talking about is an individual who is convicted of a drug-related crime, who does not have a prior criminal background, but then gets exposed to this criminal element from the very correctional facilities that are supposed to be rehabilitating them. And I got exposed to a lot more than I should have, being sent to a penitentiary for a drug-related incident that I might never have seen, if I had been sent to a treatment program. So, I am very passionate, and SMART's already very heavily involved in this. There's a lot of programs already existing. The Inside Out program, for instance, that's going on for some time now. So obviously that's already in the works, but my own personal experience with the penal system and the correctional facilities and dealing with their judgment towards drug-related crimes is very, very important to me, because I know it needs reform, because I've suffered through it. And, not very many people were able to do what I did. And I was only able to get back on my feet after being incarcerated because of the support network that I had in place. I had families and friends that have always believed in me, that never gave up on me, and they helped me get back there. A lot of people don't have that advantage. So many people fall back into the cracks, and it becomes almost impossible for many people, especially if you come from a background where you don't have a lot of money, you don't have a lot of resources, you don't have family. How do you come back from thousands upon thousands of dollars of fines and the stigma of you now being a criminal or a felon because of this crime, will hinder you of getting a job, and you might be trying to do the right thing, getting back on your feet, but all these limitations put onto you by these statutes make it nearly impossible. So what happens? A lot of people fall back into that criminal element. So you wind, the way the system's set up, you wind up creating criminals that might not have ever have existed because the right resources were not there to help them rehabilitate correctly. So that's something that I feel very passionate about, and I hope, tremendously hope that I'm able to get involved with as an outreach director here at SMART.
Right, and that's the lived experience that you bring to bear. That's the lived experience, the lessons, the ability to be an example, like you talked about earlier. There's an authenticity, Michael, that people who are coming into recovery, at least my experience is, they can sense that you have it or that you're just talking a good game. And obviously you have the lived experience and the reflection that you've done, the hard work of reflection, and the kind of analysis and internal work that you've done using the SMART recovery tools that have brought you to a very successful point in your life at this point. So a couple minutes we have left. Talk to me about the position itself, the State Outreach Director, and what it hopes to accomplish, and what are the initial plans. I know there's you're early in the job, but you probably know, you have some ideas about what you're going to do. Tell me about them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you had mentioned it earlier in our interview. Our hopes are to get more involved with existing programs within Ohio that are dealing with addictive behavior and substance abuse treatment, and also with the educational aspect of it. And what we mean by that is basically attacking it on two fronts. It's reaching out to these programs that exist already, finding out if SMART can be incorporated within these programs to give their participants more options to heal, or at least can endorse or have a mutual support for each other moving forward within the recovery community. So that's an aspect of it that we look into as our outreach programs grow. That's one of our motivations. The second is education. There's a lot of need for education, as you had mentioned before, because of COVID-19. There's been an increase in opioid addiction and alcohol dependency, especially for people that are stuck at home, that may have been drinking in the past, but not on such a habitual level that it's become now. That they realize that some of them might realize, I do have a problem. Where do I go? And I'm stuck in the house. How do I find the help that I need? SMART was born online. SMART, started online in 1994. This is common ground for this program. So, we dove right into an area, to assist those that cannot be face-to-face anymore because of the pandemic this country is suffering through. And we've excelled at it, through our Zoom meetings, moving our face-to-face meetings online, through the tremendous staff that works at the national office and the volunteers that work with SMART Recovery Online, and those facilitators and participants and hosts that help keep the Zoom meetings going every single day. That all helps with educating the population with what we do and what we can provide. So that's another aspect of outreach that we're also looking into. So those two major fronts, I think, are going to be the focal point getting me started, or at least in the early days. And we're already making great headway with that. We've already started. We have the first online smart recovery meeting for the Cleveland Veterans Association right here in Cleveland, Ohio. And that started 2 weeks ago, and it's going strong. And we're looking nothing more but north already to excel and promote that. And we're hitting the ground running. And this is not some cushy armchair position, right? You know what I mean? I'm going to be sitting back smoking a cigar and like, oh yeah, we're doing great. No, this is boots on the ground. This is getting our hands dirty. This is making sure that we are in every crevice and place that this program can go to help save lives. And that's the bottom line, is outreach is here for smart recovery to help save lives. And that's what I'm hoping to accomplish, during my time here.
Right. And that's the most important thing. You just nailed it. These lives people are suffering, family and friends around folks are suffering, their employers may be suffering. I mean, it's just a disease that creates so many ripple effects. And I think what SMART does, and the message that you're going to carry, is that we can put a stop to those ripples. And the way that, even that's not well said. We don't put a stop to it. You put a stop to it. We provide the tools and the information and knowledge so that you can, as a participant, avail yourself of those resources. And, and as you said, the fourth point of SMART's 4-point program is living a balanced and healthy life. And that's really all we hope to do, I would say. Last thing, Michael, so you mentioned Cleveland. I know you're going to be traveling, though. You have some plans, and of course now it would be more Zoom, but eventually are you going to get into the central and southeast and southwest parts of Ohio?
I'm actually planning on moving very soon to hoping around the Akron area to help me get a little bit more centralized. I'm very passionate about getting connected with the smaller communities. Urban areas have a lot more resources than the smaller suburban and rural communities do. And Ohio is a big farm state. You know what I mean? It's a very proud farm state, and it deserves every bit of opportunity that anyone can enjoy in the cities. And I'm hoping, moving to a smaller area, being more centralized will help me give me a better start point for when the day comes that I am able to be more mobile. I'll be, have a much easier chance to get connected to these communities and places beyond that. You know what I mean? I want to be able to be available. And so that's my goal. I want to be where I'm needed, and I don't want anything to slow me down. And so I'm going to put myself right smack dab in the middle and go for the gusto. That's my goal.
Excellent. And you know what? I have every confidence that you'll be able to achieve that, Michael. It's obvious to me, your passion for helping people, your passion especially for helping people who have substance use disorders and are suffering from an imbalance in life and negative behaviors that are impacting them and making their life really, in some cases, a terrible experience at that moment. So you've been listening to the Smart Recovery Podcast. We've been talking with Michael Hooper. Michael, best of luck in Ohio. I really, really wish you the best, and we all do.
It's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
If you or someone you know needs addiction-related help, we encourage you to visit smartrecovery.org to find a wealth of digital resources, practical tools, and social supports meant to help you and your loved ones on their recovery journey. While there, you can search for a local SMART meeting near you, or join our online community to find 24/7 access to recovery help through regular online meetings and helpful message boards and forums. All of our meetings and online community resources are completely free of charge. Be sure to connect with us online to get more helpful addiction-related resources. Visit our website at smartrecovery.org, where you can search for local meetings, join our online community, subscribe to our e-newsletter, and find regular blogs, videos, podcasts, and more. You can also help us to spread our self-empowering, science-based messages to more people who need to hear from them in important ways. First, get trained on the Smart Recovery Program. If you are a licensed healthcare provider and could benefit from using Smart Recovery in your professional work, or if you are someone who would like to volunteer and lead Smart Recovery meetings in your community, please check out our training and volunteer opportunities at www.smartrecovery.org/training. Second, donate to support our work. Smart Recovery is a nonprofit that runs on the donations from generous supporters who understand the need for recovery-related support. If you would like to help us reach more people, consider donating to Smart Recovery at smartrecovery.org/donate. We'd like to thank US World Meds for their generous support of this episode. We'll see you next time on the next episode of the Smart Recovery Podcast.